If you are struggling with coming up with better ideas, better concept designs, or better blockouts for your models, this video is for you. I'm going to share with you a list of really cool tricks and tips that will help you tremendously to improve in that area. Let's go. So number one, focus on proportions. This is really important, right? Number two, use simple shapes. Number three, maintain the scale. Number four, prioritize key elements. Number five is going to be repetition, and number six is going to be references. So let's go and start with point number one, which is focus on proportions. When you create a blockout, right, you really need to nail down the proportions. Think about it. If you look at the person and, person body, right, our human body, it's well proportioned, and this is why we can move. That's why we can run. That's why we can catch balance, right? So if your model blockout or anything you create is out of balance, it doesn't matter what kind of elements you're going to put onto it, it's just going to look wonky. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your model is balanced. Now, how can you achieve balance in your models? By observations. And that goes to the point number 6, which is references. Surround yourself by as many references as humanly possible, okay? Keep gathering them, keep looking at them as well. Studying references is also studying 3D or becoming better at art. You can put some time aside to just literally look at references or gather references. I have a ton of references. My PureRef, catalog is like 70 gigabytes, okay? I got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of images that I can look at. But I continuously improve and build this library because there's just never enough. Now, what's really important, right, when you're gathering these references, you need to make sure that you're going to be gathering good art. So go to places like ArtStation and search for top artists, because there's a good chance that the people who have the largest amount of following on ArtStation gonna be producing good art, good composition, good design, etc., right? Good lighting. And you want to look at good images, because if you're going to look at bad images, you're going to be like AI. Think about it, right? AI basically is garbage in, garbage out. There's a lot of garbage on the internet, so the AI gets fed, garbage images and spits out a lot of garbage. If you nail it down with prompts and you know exactly what you want, but that's down to a human, you can create some amazing art using AI. But if you drop a random prompt, it's gonna be shit. And the reason why it's shit, because 99% of art on the internet is fucking garbage, right? So if you're gonna be learning based on garbage, your art's gonna be garbage. So forget the fucking Facebook, forget the fucking Instagram, forget what's popular. That's important. Forget what's popular. Go after people who are actually fucking good, right? That's essential. Let's go back to proportions. Let's say you want to create a gun, a rifle. There's a basic ratio between the stock length and the rest of the gun. So it's like 1/3 to 2/3, for example, right? Or for example, the distance between the wheels on a car, right? Or the width of the car. There's a basic rule of proportions there. You need to maintain this in order to build a proper model, because if you break that, doesn't matter how good your model is going to be on top of it, it's going to look weird to our eyes, because we are used as humans to seeing cars in certain proportions, to seeing guns in certain proportions. Why? Because we use them, right? So they have to be matching specific proportions in order for us to use them effectively. Point number 2, use simple elements. Look at, for example, this gun, okay? This is from Star Citizen, right? Now, this gun is based off of very few simple elements. You have this cylinder for the barrel, then the cylinder for the kind of like a magazine main mechanism thing. There's another cylinder in the bottom and another cylinder in the back, and then simply some, connecting elements that look like basically extended cubes. Do you see what I mean? So you need to start thinking in a broader sense. Look at the whole picture and try to simplify all the elements you see into very simple, basic geometrical shapes, right? That's how you'll train your brain to start building with basic blocks, and this will allow you to create more balanced shapes. Just like in SubD, okay? When you're using SubD, you supposed to start with very, very large size polygons, because it's easier to change the shape of SubD when you're using larger polygons. If you're going to subdivide them into small polygons, you'll need to move a lot of them in order to change the overall shape or feel of it, right? So when you have fewer polygons, it's easier to change the shape. That's the same thing. You want to use large pieces of building blocks and very basic shapes like, cylinders, cubes, spheres, etc. Okay, so this is really crucial. So do not rush into into secondary details or tertiary. Forget about tertiary, but don't rush into secondary details. Don't rush into refining your shape. You need to first find the main balance, the basic core, sort of an outline of your object before you start going deeper. You can try this exercise, right? Let's say that you trying to reconstruct a gun, right? Whatever. Just go to Photoshop, cut it out, right? And paint it black. What you're gonna see is you're gonna see literally a silhouette, right? Silhouette of whatever you want to create. And try to kind of recreate the silhouette with using basic shapes in Blender. It's gonna help you to visualize the overall balance because you will stop focusing on details, right? And your brain gonna start focusing on the overall, larger picture, right? Just like you're trying to solve a problem. You need to first look at the larger problem, just like managers do or CEOs do in a company. That's why in such a high position, and that's why they get paid so much, because they can see shit from a higher perspective. They can look at the whole picture and see the overall problem. They're not focusing on the one thing or micromanaging. They're focusing on the whole, they're focusing on the basic direction of the company. The same here, you're focusing on the direction of your model before you're going to start going into micromanaging secondary and tertiary details here. I hope it makes sense. Next one's going to be maintaining the scale. This is really important. What you can do, right? You can use references. So for example, you're making a ship, like this one you see on the screen, right? You can put a human next to it in order to make sure that when you're going to be building that ship, it will make sense in terms of proportions. So, this human will fit this entrance. Or, or I don't know, or this truck will fit this cargo plane. Do you know what I mean? So proportions are important and it all plays together. So you got, the house is going to be proportional to the door and vice versa, right? The car is going to be proportional to the road. You know what I mean? So, and again, go back to references if you have to, but the more you look at references, the better your kind of a feeling, this kind of an intuition of scale and proportion is going to be. So when you're building something, always try to use a scale reference if you can, right? It's really important. Now, point number 4, prioritizing key elements. That's kind of similar to using basic shapes because in order to prioritize the key elements, so the basic outline of the, like I told you, silhouette of this, of this model you're creating, you have to use basic shapes because it's much easier to change the basic proportions when you're using basic shapes. So when you focus on the key elements of your model, like again, going back to this Star Citizen gun, the basic elements here is going to be the barrel and the backhand. So the question now is, how do I build the barrel? Don't look at the cables. Don't look at the connectors. Don't look at anything else. Just look at the shape. It's a fucking, cylinder, which is cut out, right? And then the back is cylinder with some other, additional elements. So create a cube and start cutting it out. Start adding cylinders. Do you know what I mean? So in order to create better blockouts, you need to prioritize key elements of that design that you're creating, and also use simple shapes in order to build this shape in the 3D software, and then start refining it. Okay, so you got the progression. You got the basic elements, proportions, scale, and then you can move on. Okay. And number 5 is going to be repetition. So basically rinse and repeat, right? So, you do something and you repeat it. You do something and you repeat it. So let's say you're designing a gun. Don't expect you're going to design an amazing gun at first, right? Maybe it's going to take you 10 tries, 20 tries. It doesn't matter. The point is you need to keep trying until you get there. So, if you're going to successfully create a basic blockout of a gun, then the next step is going to be, progressing into a secondary detail stage, right? So once you master one, you master the other. And once you create a gun, maybe you're ready for a rifle. Once you create a rifle, maybe you're ready for a cannon. Do you see what I mean? So there's going to be a lot of repetition when you're learning, because repetition is how you fucking learn, how you progress, right? You repeat, repeat, and repeat, and you're becoming a master. And the more times you're going to repeat something, the more intuitive you're going to become. And the more intuitive you're gonna become, the easier it's gonna be for you to come up with some other fresh ideas on top of it. Do you see what I mean? Because you stop thinking about the proportions, you got the scale nailed down. Now your brain is kind of on autopilot and you're focusing on creating better details, better ideas, kind of you start riffing off of it, just like a musician, right? They know all the notes, they know all the tones, they know all the, where to place the fingers when they're playing the guitar or whatever. And they just start jamming, right? They just start improvising. And that's literally what your brain gonna do. You're gonna be so well versed in the basics that your brain's gonna start riffing off of the ideas you've seen in the past. And this basic knowledge that's been built up in your brain, and you're gonna start creating better and better and better designs. Go on fucking ArtStation, look at any artist's portfolio, and you will see that at the very bottom, the work's usually gonna be weaker than the ones on the top. Why? Because they fucking improved. Why they improved? Because they were repeating whatever they were doing. If someone is in the niche of making guns, their gun's gonna be better, becoming better and better. This brings us to a subject of niche. Okay, once you find what you really like, it's really important. It's fucking essential. You focus the fuck down, because when you focus on one thing, and you're gonna be repeating the same thing within a smaller genre, right? With a smaller niche, there's just no way you're not gonna get better. Okay, it's math, right? So the narrower your focus is, the better. So when, let's say, you are trying to create a car, right? You're trying to become a sci-fi car artist, right? If you're gonna try this for a week and say, fuck it, that's too difficult, let's make guns, right? You're not gonna get there. You need to stick to it, right? Provided you like what you're doing, stick to it. Because if you give up and jump on a thing, your learning basically resets. You start from scratch because it's a completely different subject, right? Guns have different proportions than fucking cars. And the last point, like I said, references. Probably the most important thing in creating better models, better blockouts, and better whatever in 3D is references. Because let's say you wanted to create an engine, right? And you are not a mechanic. Even if you were a mechanic, I guarantee you that you will not be able to reproduce an engine from memory unless you're a person who built the whole thing from scratch multiple times. Do you see what I mean? Because there's no way that your brain gonna remember all these small details unless there's something wrong with your fucking brain, okay? Unless you're a freak of nature, or some genius, all right? So reference is gonna be a bread and butter of your success in 3D space or any other space really, but especially in art. Because, we need to build a massive visual library in our brains before we actually can start riffing. Just like I told you with the musician example, you need to have all this knowledge in your brain, play multiple pieces, right? Improvise just to start jamming with other artists. This is the highest, improvisation is the highest level of creativity. And that's basically on the master level, right? So you need to get there first in order for this to happen. And in order to get there, you need to get there based on good examples, and that's references, right? And repetition of studying of these good examples. You see what I mean? So again, to sum it up, you need to focus on proportions. You need to use simple shapes. You need to maintain the scale, right? You need to prioritize key elements, and you need to repeat, and you need to use references in order to create really good blockouts, better designs, better detailing, better anything in 3D, okay? All right, guys, well, that's it for the video. See you in the next one.